Let him cook. Let him fucking cook. I don't want to smack the desk too hard, but today I have to tell you, what an absolutely beautiful day it is to be a Colts fan. What an absolutely beautiful day it is to be a Chris Ballard apologist. I mean, it really is maybe the best day I've ever had as a Chris Ballard apologist. And it's moments like this where, as a fan base, we get reminded as to why it was that Chris Ballard, early in his time in Indianapolis, certainly not recently, but early in his time in Indianapolis, was considered to be one of the better general managers in the league. And before we even get into all the action, and there was a lot of action today, I'm hoping nothing else happens while I'm recording the episode, I do feel it's necessary to make this point about Chris Ballard because he is largely misunderstood as a general manager. There was this sentiment when it came to him coming out of that end of season press conference this year from the fan base that it was kind of just same old Ballard. He was bullshitting us, and we should not trust what it is that he was telling us. But for those of you who were here, what did I say? What did I say about Chris Ballard after that press conference? Maybe the only person that was saying it. I said, no. That was a different Chris Ballard than what we had seen in recent seasons following the season. He had expressed remorse for the way that he had approached building this team, as opposed to being defensive and doubling down on his ways. He laid it all out on the table. He admitted his faults. And I said, following that press conference, that that was a different Chris Ballard than we had seen in recent seasons. And of course, as is always the case, anytime I say anything positive about Chris Ballard whatsoever, I was met with resistance, despite the fact that all of you know that I have never been wrong about the Indianapolis Colts in my entire life. Like, I have all aspects of my life. I am a complete idiot. The one place, the only place that I've never been wrong is about this team. But despite the fact that you know that, I continued to get met with resistance. I was told not to trust what he was saying, which brings me back to why I'm saying Chris Ballard is misunderstood, okay? Because now that I've taken my victory lap, let me meet you where you're at, okay? You may not trust Chris Ballard's ability as a general manager. And quite frankly, whether or not I agree with you is not really the point. You have fair reason to feel that way. I would never deny that it's fair of you to question the abilities of Chris Ballard as the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, okay? I'm not going to argue that. But in terms of trusting what it is that Chris Ballard tells you, this is where the misunderstanding comes. This is a man that has never, ever lied to this fan base. He may have failed us. He may have not put out the team that we wanted him to put out, but he has never lied to us. In fact, the fact that he's so truthful with us is part of the reason you hate him, whether you realize it or not. I mean, when he says, we like our guys, right? That's become a running gag amongst the fan base. We like our guys. You hated him saying that because he was telling you the truth. Not because he was lying to you, but because when he said we like our guys, you knew that he wasn't about to bring in what it is that you felt he had to bring in to turn the Colts into a more competitive football team. And for those of you following along, I told you that if the Colts meant business in this free agency, that we would know very, very early on. We would know before free agency was technically official, because keep in mind, even though as it is every offseason, you're watching free agency happen right now. Free agency isn't technically official, I think, until Wednesday at 12 or 4 or something like that. But nonetheless, every report that you're seeing, you could essentially take as the gospel. I told you the Colts would be one of the teams winning early on in free agency if things were going to be different. And sure enough, that's what happened. And for me, the domino that dropped today was that restructuring of Braden Smith's contract. That's when I knew. Like, while other people looked at that and said, damn, looks like we're going to be losing Will Fries, which we don't know yet, by the way, or at least we don't know as I record this. We'll see, okay? I saw it and said, he's about to start spending money now. Why did I know that? Why, Justin? How, oh, how could you have possibly known that from a simple restructuring of Braden Smith's contract? I'll tell you how. Because if you did not plan to spend in this free agency, there would have been absolutely zero reason to restructure that Braden Smith contract because it's off the books at the end of the upcoming season, meaning the implications of the saved money on Braden Smith's contract are relevant to this offseason and this offseason only, meaning the only reason you would do it is if you were looking to spend the money now. And sure enough, here we are. The Colts have added Cam Bynum and Chardavius. I'm the worst at pronouncing names. Chardavius Ward. 4 years, $60 million for Cam Bynum, and 3 years, $60 million for Chardavius Ward. Two of the best options in the secondary that free agency had to offer this year. Of course, we do have departures in Ryan Kelly and Dayo and Odeyingbo. We've re-signed Ashton Dulin. We're going to talk about it all, except for Ashton Dulin, probably, because to be fair, listen, I know Chris Ballard likes him. I know Jonathan Taylor likes him, but for me, it just doesn't really move the needle all that much. No disrespect to Ashton Dulin. I think he's a solid player, but that's about where that ends. But we're going to talk about it all, including what they still need to get done and whether it's going to be in free agency or the draft. I guess I'm not going to so much give you whether I think it's going to be one or the other. But point being, we're going to talk about some of the stuff they still need to get done too, along with some of the things they've done. But before we do, you know what it is. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. As always, asking and watching on YouTube and enjoying the show. Go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. If you're a happy Colts fan like me, we're on the quest to 4,000 subscribers over here. We're trying to do it by the start of next season. Of course, audio listeners, leave a 5-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying the show. But as always, let's just enjoy the content. Let's be civil in the comment section. You don't know what the person on the other side of the keyboard is going through today, but I expect that things today perhaps will be productive. But that being said, the comment section on this channel, in this community, you guys are the best. It's always productive. No one is ever name calling this, that, or the next. Certainly not that I see. So that's always appreciated. But without further ado, let's get back into the regularly scheduled program. And we want to start here with Camryn Bynum. Now, a 4-year pro has not missed a single, and this right here, the play aside, in my opinion, the best thing about this signing, dude has not missed a game since his rookie season in Minnesota. He's known for his versatility, being high energy, known for celebrations. I mean, we'll see what that's all about. The Colts defense and energy that very much feeds off of energy. Like, man, when this defense is on, the energy is up, everything's going well. And when it's not, things are going bad. But this is a high energy guy, keeps big plays in front of him, allegedly. I mean, listen, it's not like I've sit here and watched all the tape, okay? Like, he just showed up. I'm just going off of the research that I've done so far, okay? This dude burst onto the scene in 2023 and went into this past season being considered one of the top 20 or so safeties in football. Keep in mind, there's 2 starting safeties on every team. There's 32 teams in the league, meaning there are 64 safeties in the league. So if you're top 20, not too bad. How about that for some numbers for you? Look at what a nerd I am, bringing up the numbers and things of that nature. Who the heck cares about a number? Not for anything. Either way, it can be argued that Cam Bynum has not even hit his prime yet. And you look, the general consensus right now amongst Minnesota Vikings fans, they're saying, how could you have possibly let him go for that price? I mean, that's kind of a good sign. Like when the fan base that had a very good team last year is looking at a player on the defensive side of the ball who may not have like a household name notoriety throughout the league, but when they're looking at him and saying, hey, we lost a good one, that's not a bad thing to see. And I think that Cam Bynum is exactly what the doctor ordered for the Indianapolis Colts at safety, and on paper is a fantastic fit in smooth Lou's defense, if for no other reason than the fact that Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator in Minnesota, who he played for last year, is known for, just like Smooth Lou, for his creativity as a defensive play caller, meaning that Cam Bynum is used to having to wear multiple different hats on the defensive side of the ball. He's known, or rather, he's used to having to do multiple things, right? So whatever the game plan calls for, Cam Bynum is going to be able to do for the Indianapolis Colts, or at least we have reasonable reason to believe that that will be the case. So he should be a clear upgrade over Julian Blackmon, who, say what you want about him as a fan of the Indianapolis Colts, Blackmon is not a scrub of a safety, okay? Like, if he's not back with us, which it seems he won't be, he's going to play a lot of snaps for whoever it is, assuming he stays on the field. He's going to play a lot of snaps for whoever it is that signs him. So an upgrade over Julian Blackmon, a very, very good thing for the Indianapolis Colts. Cam Bynum, one of the best safeties in the free agent market this year. Now, Chardavius Ward is one of the best corners in football, period, okay? Where you rank him is up to you. You might rank him 3, you might rank him 5, you might rank him 8. Doesn't really matter. He's easily amongst the top 10 corners in the league, and kind of an off year last year for him after experiencing tragedy early in the season, like in October with the death of his 1-year-old daughter, not to bring that up for no reason. But, it's understandable that you would have an off year after something like that. But going into last season had kind of been a fixture amongst the top corners in the league. And no one watched last year and thought that he wasn't one of the better. Just if your standard was top 3, top 5, he was just a little bit off of that. And when he was in the Chiefs before San Francisco, he quickly became one of my favorite defenders to watch in the league. I mean, he would just lock dudes up in man coverage whenever I was watching the Chiefs. So the addition of Chardavius Ward, very, very, very exciting for the Indianapolis Colts. They have not had a corner this good on the outside since basically, I would say, Stephon Gilmore, except Chardavius Ward, quite a bit younger than Stephon Gilmore was when he was brought onto the team. 28 years of age, in theory, in the middle of his prime, and at an age that allows him to give us a few years of high-level play and kind of allow some of the younger guys that we have in the secondary, the Jalen Joneses of the world, hopefully the Juju Brents of the world, right, to come into their own kind of as second, third, fourth pieces while Chardavius Ward holds down that number 1 corner spot. So our corners right now, Chardavius Ward, Jalen Jones, Kenny Moore, Juju Brents, Samuel Womack. That would be your top 5 before the draft and anything else, right? And then our safeties, Nick Cross, Cam Bynum, and Rodney Thomas, who has plenty of experience starting in this league, again, before the draft and anything else that happens. I mean, come on, right? A very early prediction for me, but on paper, this secondary has a chance to really make quite a bit of noise next year, which is almost hard to believe. Like, I'm only honest with you guys. Like, I would never sit here and try to gas something up if I didn't think it was true. You have a lot of great playmakers in the secondary here. I mean, we know what Nick Cross can do, and he's young too, but I mean, he was flying around last year. Kenny Moore, we know what he brings to the table. Jalen Jones, the chip on his shoulder that he plays with. Chardavius Ward needs no explanation, right? Juju Brents, if he can stay healthy. I mean, and of course, Cam Bynum, right? I mean, that's a lot of playmakers, and a weakness last year for the Indianapolis Colts looks like it might have just turned into a strength. Of course, that's a little premature, but between Smooth Lou, Chris Hewitt from Baltimore, who was with them for just some great stretches in the secondary, and the additions that we just made in the secondary, I mean, bellissimo for the Indianapolis Colts and Smooth Lou Gabagoo. I mean, that is just... I mean, it feels good to be a fan. What can I say? Now, as for Ryan Kelly, let's go to the sad side of things, because what a legendary Colt Ryan Kelly was. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to give you a fake fact, the longest tenured Colt on the team before just leaving to go to the Minnesota Vikings. Good for him. Listen, good for him, right? He's had problems staying healthy. I thought that keeping him wouldn't have been a bad option, right? I think a lot of people viewed it and said, you got to get rid of him. I said, hey, wouldn't really be a bad thing to keep him, but it seems the team is going to move forward with Taylor Bortolini. They're going to move forward with Bortolini at center, who was good, very good, may I add, in limited snaps last year. We'll see if he's ready to kind of take that thing by the balls, right, and really be a full-time starting center. But the team has generally drafted very well on the offensive line. I do think they need to be careful to not overlook the position, because I do remember that, and when I say the position, I mean the offensive line as a whole, not just the center. I remember, you guys remember following the season that the Colts trotted out Matt Pryor at left tackle, and that was really maybe the first season that the offensive line was a real problem for the Indianapolis Colts. And I'll never forget in the postseason press conference from Chris Ballard that year, one of the things he had said, because they had drafted Alec Pierce that offseason, right? And Matt Pryor was one of those glaring things that people were looking at and saying, what the heck is going on here? And Chris Ballard, his explanation for why he trotted out Matt Pryor is like, he said he was taking so much shit from the fans and the media about not having receivers. So he's like, well, I went and go drafted a receiver, and all of a sudden now I look and my line ain't playing well, right? And it's just something I never forgot. Now, my point being, and bringing that up, is that they cannot take for granted what they have there on the offensive line like they did that offseason. You hope it's a lesson learned for the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, the line's been pretty damn good since that time, all things considered, even if they haven't lived up to their own standard at times. Ultimately, the Indianapolis Colts offensive line has been pretty big time for a period of time now. Ballard has generally been proactive in adding depth to the offensive line. No reason we should expect that to change, but let's see. Will Fries right now, a very important piece for the Indianapolis Colts. I assume his agent telling him to test the market as much as possible. Kind of complicated to gauge what his value might be, given the fact that he's coming off the broken tibia, and we know he was a 7th-round pick, and we know that despite the fact he was playing very, very good at right guard, really a relatively small sample size, I believe in his ability to be a damn good starting guard in the league, no question about that. But I think right now he's going to be a guy, it might take a while to see where he goes. Like, I think he's a guy that he's really going to have to test the market to see exactly what it is that he can get. Offensive line for the Indianapolis Colts, point being, wrap it up in a bow, Justin. Something that isn't like alarming by any means, but something at the same time that the Colts, you don't want to let that one slip away. I don't think we would see that damage this year, but it's something you would see in a year or two if they're not careful early on that story. But nonetheless, I bring it up in objectivity, right? For the sake of fairness. Dayo Odeyingbo got paid a lot of money, okay? Who cares? I mean, we'll live without him. I like what he brings, but for the contract that he got, I don't have it up in front of me, but really an exorbitant amount of money for a guy whose best season involved 8.5 career sacks, or rather 8.5 career sacks, 8.5 sacks on the season. Not to say he can't play. He absolutely can play, but he wasn't going to be a starter for us. Therefore, how can you possibly justify paying him that type of money? So totally fine with him going. Ryan Kelly, kind of bittersweet. Don't hate it. But if letting him go meant that we're able to bring the guys in the secondary, does make sense from a team structure standpoint. So great. What the Colts still need, a quarterback, right? It's going to be Danny Dimes. I'm just letting you know that right now. Daniel Jones will be an Indianapolis Colt. Mark my words on that one. He was my favorite of the options going into free agency that were available. That's more so now, if I'm to be transparent with you, that's more so due to a lack of options as opposed to his greatness. Trust me, I'm not going to sit here and try to let you, believe that Daniel Jones is anything other than a dart throw at best. I mean, I do think he has a lot of the things that you need to be a quality quarterback in the league, but obviously his confidence beaten down. That's going to be something you have to build back up. But either way, Daniel Jones, he has not signed with the Indianapolis Colts as I record this, but this is going to age well. Daniel Jones will be an Indianapolis Colt, okay? That is what it is. Colts need a linebacker. Dre Greenlaw went to Denver, so that's kind of lame, to be 100% honest with you. We're going to see if EJ Speed maybe ends up back here in Indianapolis. We're going to have to see. Maybe they bring him back and invest an early pick into the linebacker position. Curious to see what they do at the linebacker position, but it's something we got to keep an eye on because we weren't exactly top heavy with talent to begin with. And without EJ Speed, that doesn't get any better. Okay. Like, say what you want, about EJ Speed. He's not a scrub. Okay. Like, EJ Speed is a solid linebacker and will get playing time for whoever it is that he goes and plays for, even if it is the Indianapolis Colts. So that is what it is. Quarterback, linebacker. These are two things to look out for in free agency. Daniel Jones will be with us. Linebacker, we're going to have to see what they do. My guess is that it's a combination of whatever signing they make and kind of a top maybe 3 draft pick. And by top 3, I mean first 3 rounds or so. But we're going to have to see. Hopefully this episode doesn't get outdated like that. But if it does, don't worry. We'll be back with another one in short order. But that was it. That's an episode. Day 1 of Colts free agency. Not over yet. But as for the purposes of this episode, over. My name is Justin. This right here was the Riding the Bench and is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. Like, subscribe if you have not yet. And as always, on today of all the days, go Colts.